Hi there, welcome to Nonsense Whisky. My name's PF, and on today's episode we've got a bit of a bourbon, but not as you know it. In the glass today we've got Angel's Envy, and this is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, but it is finished in port wine barrels. Now I'm quite lucky to get this because it's really hard to get in the UK. You know, it sells on the secondary market. You can get hold of it if you're very, very lucky, but usually it sells on the secondary market over here. And I've seen it selling from anywhere between £55 all the way up to £150 just for the standard version of it. They do also have a cask strength version which sells into the hundreds in the UK. It's well worth getting when you can get hold of it, but I really do implore you to open it and drink it rather than sell it on because, you know me, I'm not really into that sort of thing. If you're in the US, you've probably seen this quite a lot all over the place. Although it's made in batches, it's still fairly available for most people if you know where to look. So a little bit about Angel's Envy themselves. I actually got this from a friend of my wife's who works with a guy called Peter, so thank you very much for loaning this to me. I'm very appreciative of that because I don't think I would have got hold of it otherwise. But the Angel's Envy distillery is an actual distillery in Kentucky. They also produce a rye, but I'm pretty sure that's made at NGP in Indiana. Never mind. It's got a good old mash bill on it. It's 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. It's about 6 years old and it's finished for an undetermined amount of time. They just decide when it's ready. Let's get into the nose and see what it's all about and if it really makes much difference with the port finish. Now for me on the nose, it's huge amounts of cherry. Lots of vanilla in there as well. And some dried fruit, stuff like raisins and things like that. Let's try on the palate. Now initially, it's got quite a thin mouthfeel, but that quickly disappears. There's huge amounts of spice to it. We're talking like, you know, star anise, that sort of spice. Loads more cherry, loads more vanilla, and then at the back end, there's almost like a kind of dryness from the oak, which I guess is kind of like the port influence as well. Really bringing that sweetness down and adding a bit more dryness to it. For the finish, it's kind of a medium sweetness. Disappears after a little bit, but then there's this kind of long spiciness that just keeps on going. I'm still tasting it now, and it just doesn't want to disappear, which is really nice. British Bourbon Society glass as well. Why not? Every bourbon, I'll try and drink it out of this. But yeah, so it's one of those whiskies that's a really tough one for me because I'm in the UK. I can't get this everywhere. I've seen this on the British Bourbon Society, people raving about it, so really glad to get an opportunity to have this. This is actually a 750ml bottle, and I don't think they sell this in 700ml for the UK market. That's our kind of normal. I know in the US you're lucky enough to get a little bit more for your money. But I'm pretty sure they're not going to be selling this over here anytime soon. So if you get the opportunity, you're going to have to bring it back from America. I don't recommend that you spend ridiculous amounts of money on it on the secondary market because although it's a fantastic whiskey, any more than sort of £50, I think you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. That you may as well just wait until you can get to America, or if you know someone who goes there can bring it back for you, something like that. If you're really desperate and you're a millionaire, then for sure try it because I think it's really quite fantastic. Really enjoying the kind of extra dynamic that the portwood finish brings to it. That extra kind of dryness really brings down some of that sweetness that you get from corn whiskies. So it's one of those ones where you have to kind of decide where you fit in bourbons. If you don't like the sweetness of corn and you're not a huge fan of the kind of real spiciness of rye, this kind of fits squarely in the middle. But for me, it's well worth trying if you can get your hands on it. But it's finished in port casks. Ugh. Now it's something like 70-something% corn. I know the exact numbers. For the finish, it's oh dear.